I was doing some number diving today about Georgia's running backs and some statistical trends, right? As I've just put out an article on dogpost.com about what Georgia's running back room looks like headed into the spring, and that got me to thinking about what it's looked like in the past and what it's looked like when there's a lot of success for Georgia. Something I want to preface this is I'm not saying 2023 was a bad season, and the numbers are obviously they're not going to prove that 2023 was a bad season. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Georgia's been extremely successful when they have a legitimate receiving threat at running back, or the production adds up to where they have a legitimate receiving threat at running back. Getting about 500 or more yards receiving out of your running back, I think it helps create a dynamic element to your offense. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's something that I've always preferred having on teams that I root for, teams in the NFL, teams in college, teams on Madden. I've always liked the idea of having a receiving threat at the running back position. And then I started looking at the numbers for Georgia in 2012, a very good season. In 2018, 2019, 2017, right? Thought of to be contenders, a legitimate contender in 2017, which actually was the outlier for what I'm trying to prove. And so I will play a little bit of devil's advocate. 21, 22, and 23 are a little bit more of what's going on with Georgia in recent years and more similar personnel and coaching. So it's a little bit more accurate to what I want to talk about. But I think that when Georgia has a receiving threat from the backfield, it doesn't have to come from one person. I think they do a little bit better on offense. For the most part, personnel matters. I'm prefacing these few things. Personnel matters. Situation matters, right? Obviously, I think a lot of us feel that Georgia was top 2 or 3 team in college football this past season, and it didn't get a chance to go to the college football playoff. Did that have a ton to do with the running backs not being as big of a receiving threat? I don't necessarily think that, but I want to dive into it. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here, talking about Georgia's running backs, why I think the receiving threat from them helps Georgia's offense out a lot. Real quick newsletter, I'm linking that down below. And if you want to read stuff like what I talked about with Georgia's running back room heading into 2023, heading into spring practice really, because I think we learn more during spring ball. It's really obvious, right? I think there's a lot of speculation in January and February, but then when March rolls around, you get pro day, that's fun, and then spring practice starts. You get a couple weeks there in April. Mid-April, you get G-Day, right? You don't want to be missing out on any of that stuff. So if you want to stay up to date on the latest Georgia Bulldog news, you should be signing up for our newsletter with that link down below. All you got to do is give us our email address, and you can read stories like the premium one I put out on Dawg Post. I keep saying today, I'm recording this Friday evening. This is a Saturday morning video, something I put out on Friday for dogpost.com. Moving on. All right, numbers. Let's first look at national championship seasons for Georgia, 21 and 22. When they won the national championship, more prefaces, just because I want to get the outside argument out of the way. Obviously, Georgia's defenses were excellent. Obviously, the offense was balanced, and they were just great teams that went on to win national championships. That's not the point of this. The point is, in 2021, Kenny McIntosh had 22 catches for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was Georgia's third leading back with 300 yards on the ground, and obviously Kenny, I'm going to talk about him in 2022 in more detail, but that was Georgia's third string running back, getting 22 catches for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. Combine that with James Cook's 27 for 284 and 4 touchdowns. You got 6 touchdowns there. Math. You got 526 yards there on 49 catches. So 49 catches, 526 yards, and 6 touchdowns is what they got from a receiving threat from 2 backs. Add Zamir White's 9 for 75. You're going around 600, right? You're going around 6 catches for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. I didn't mean to throw 3 sixes out there, but there's a little bit more symmetry with that. So that's the kind of production you got from a season where Stetson Bennett was the quarterback for some games, where JT Daniels was the quarterback for a few games. Georgia's offense was kind of all over the place, and it had that. It had a receiving threat out of the backfield. And when I say it had a receiving threat out of the backfield, I mean that there was a combination of it, and they had 2 of them, with James Cook and Kenny McIntosh. When you move into 2022, well, James Cook's gone. You know, is Georgia still going to have this. And in 2022, Georgia went 15-0. Georgia's offense looked great. Stetson Bennett coming back for another year helps that, right? And I think that Georgia's offense really improved from that. Kenny McIntosh by himself, 43 catches for 505 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had over 100 yards against Oregon. Torched Oregon. But there were key moments throughout the year where Kenny McIntosh gets a first down, right? Because he's a receiving threat out of the backfield. 11.7 yards per catch. That's a first down. Add that with Dejan Edwards' 14 catches for 101 yards. Add in Kendall Milton's 5 catches for 64 yards. And you've got similar production. Not as many touchdowns, but yardage-wise, you get similar production. So I think right there, you see personnel matters. But Georgia's back-to-back championship seasons, you get 600-ish plus yards, you get a few touchdowns, and you're getting around 60 catches. And that really helps a quarterback, and it really helps Stetson Bennett to have that check down, to have another threat that you can go to. In 2023, it shifts over to Carson Beck, right? Now the personnel's different. There's not a Kenny McIntosh, who we know is a good receiver out of the backfield. Obviously, James Cook's been gone for a couple of years. The offense is a little bit different with Carson Beck, who is probably not rolling out as much. I don't know where I could find maybe advanced stats on that. Maybe let me know if there's a free way for me to find that on like rollout percentages and play breakdown percentages. But they did it more than I thought they would with Carson Beck, getting him outside the pocket and making plays happen. I'm imagining like 3 or 4 different touchdowns that came off of that. One, I'm imagining the Brock Bowers touchdown against Tennessee. But in 2023, Dejan Edwards, 20 catches for 197 yards, no touchdowns. Kendall Milton, 4 catches for 25 yards, no touchdowns. Look, this 2023 team was really, 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 really good. I think it had a chance to win a national championship. I think that if given a real chance, right, by getting into the playoff, I think that it would be to nobody's surprise if Georgia went on and won the whole thing. That didn't happen. But I do think that this was something that was missing from Georgia's offense in 2023, and I think that it would have been improved from that. So I was playing around, and I was like, okay, well, let's look at some other years. 2012, a great year for Georgia, right? A great year. Another year where it felt like they were robbed of an opportunity, but they just lost to Alabama. Well, there's an outlier here. You can Todd Gurley, 117 yards catching, 16 receptions. Keith Marshall, 11 for 91 and a touchdown. Not a lot. Different offense, obviously. 222 attempts on the ground from Keith Marshall, or from Todd Gurley. 117 attempts on the ground from Keith Marshall. That's 340-ish. So you're not getting as much in the others. You're getting 300-ish when you combine Zamir White, James Cook, and Kenny McIntosh in 21. And you're getting 290 between Kenny McIntosh and Dejan Edwards. So those runners were better as runners. 2017 is another example between Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. I thought there'd be more receiving, and I think if you go back to like his earlier stats in his earlier years, Sony Michel was a bigger receiving threat. But combined between those two guys, 13 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown in 2017. Championship contending teams that didn't have a lot of receiving production from the running back room. So it does depend on personnel. But I do think that Georgia was missing this a little bit. You want to go back to 2018 and 2019? Well, not as much production, kind of in the middle. DeAndre Swift gets 32 for 297 and 3. In 2019, it dips down, but when you add in Brian Herrion's stats, it's similar. So 21 and 22 were very productive years through the air with running backs. And it's a trend that's gone up in college football where backs need to be more versatile, right? They're not as good as they used to be, right? Or at least that's the take. They're not as important as they used to be. So as receiving threats, I think it is important that they're good. And I do think that would help Georgia out a lot in the future. Let me know what you think about my number breakdown. Where can I find some advanced stats? Let me know. Links are down below. Thanks for watching.